Okay, now let's get into the user interface of Revit. When you first open up Revit, you'll get this home space here. And as you begin working on models, some of your more recent files will show up here, so this is a fast way to access them. If you click on this button on the top left-hand corner, this will turn off home and you'll be able to see all of your buttons, all of your tabs grayed out within Revit. So if I create a new file here under my file menu, let's just create a new project. I'll use the structural for this example. Let's just dive a little deeper into the Revit user interface, what the names of all of these palettes are, and just how we can organize everything. So the first thing that we should all know about is our ribbon up here. Our ribbon is where all of our tools live so that we can actually work. Okay. Right now I have two palettes up. I got my project browser on the left and my properties palette on the right. You probably can't see the entire properties palette because the camera is on it. So the cool thing about Revit is that everything is customizable. I can actually drag and drop the location of my palette where I'd like. And now I can put the project browser and the properties palette in the same window, as you can see here on the left. Now, when we talk about the ribbon, just the top section, right? We got our tabs, we got our buttons, and then we have these individual panels. You can see build, circulation, model. That's very important when it comes time to assigning a keyboard shortcut to a tool, which we'll consider in a later video on customization. But when it comes time to clicking on buttons, finding paths of buttons, knowing which panel they fall into is important. This toolbar up here is called the Quick Access Toolbar. So if you find yourself using the same tool a lot, you can add it to that panel of buttons up there. But let's talk a little bit about these tabs. Revit is a program that is very much trying to communicate with you, right? We spoke a couple videos ago as to how we are real translators between the real world and the Revit world. Well, if you ever get stuck in anything that you're trying to do, ask yourself the question, what am I trying to do? That question is really Revit talking to you. So if the answer is, I'm trying to model a column, then you look at the names of these tabs and you see, well, which more accurately relates to column. Well, in this case, it would be structure. Or under the architecture tab, you can see that there is a column there that then gets divided up into structural and architectural column. But if we go into the structural tab, you can also see we got structural column there. Okay, so that's a cool little tip that I like to use when it comes time to, or when I get stuck doing something like, well, okay, wait, what am I trying to do? Because it's very easy to get sidetracked when you're working in Revit. Okay, so that's a cool little tip. Now let me just place an element here. If I place a column, I'm going to zoom into this column and pay attention to what's happening on my ribbon. Remember, the ribbon are all of these tools up here. I'm going to select this column that I just placed, and I'll look at how my ribbon reacts to the selection. Now, I have a green tab, right? Remember, Revit is talking to you. So I selected this column, and Revit immediately tells me, hey, I can modify the structural column, and this is the list of tools. This is the list of things that I can do to that column. So again, Revit is asking you a question. Hey, what do you want to do? This is what I can do to it, all right? The name of this tab that pops up is called a Contextual Tab. And right now, again, Revit's communicating. I selected a column, and Revit is asking, oh, you want to modify structural columns? This is what we could do. And you'll get a different list of tools based on different elements that you select. Most often, if you select a column and a floor, or if you select a combination of different elements, this list of tools gets smaller and smaller, okay? So just little good tips and tricks for you to know so that when you use Revit, you don't get so intimidating that you shut down. You know, sometimes it's best just to slow down, ask yourself, what am I trying to do? And then that'll help you guide yourself into what tab you should live in. And then once you select things, not get surprised by what's happening on the ribbon. It's just communication between you and Revit. Okay? Now, if we dive a little bit deeper into the ribbon and how it behaves, if I go to replace a new column and I go to structural column, right? Think about where your mouse needs to pass on the screen before you actually place a column in your drawing area. Some people call this model space. Back in the AutoCAD days, that's what they would call this area. So if I clicked on column, right, I went to structure, column, my mouse automatically needs to pass through this green bar here. This is called the options bar. When you have nothing selected, this bar is gray. So if I hit escape on my keyboard a couple of times, this bar is just gray. But when I select elements like a wall, you can see the amount of options that pop up on that options bar. When you're just starting off with Revit, take where your mouse is going very literally, because at the beginning you're clicking a lot of buttons, right? You're not typing in these tools yet. So think about, okay, when I click on column or wall or floor, your mouse is passing over the options bar, which means you should look at your options before you begin modeling, right? Because sometimes this placement of these options aren't what you want. So it's very important to look over those things before you begin modeling. A lot of people just like modeling and getting in there and putting a model together, but the options that you select before you begin modeling are just as important as the model itself.